Hello and welcome back to this briefing. Today we're talking about how to conquer the identity and access management challenges that exist in the Amazon AWS cloud. We're also giving it an enterprise twist so we can use a common directory and a set of solutions provided by Centrify to not only conquer but enhance and exceed the needs that the modern enterprise has. In the previous video, we covered how we can secure the Amazon root account with Centrify Identity Service and how we can provide multi-factor authentication that gives information that is relevant. Now we're going to talk about providing IAM for the purposes of role-based access inside the Amazon console, right? So the Amazon console does support the ability to assign roles and rights. So the key here is that we should be able to provide just-in-time access to people. For example, in the case of Diana here, if she needed access to Amazon AWS, she's going to get SSO and she's going to be able to sign in as herself, right? If I look at the Identity and Access Management tab, notice that I have basically two groups and two users, right? So my groups are two here, and I have my AWS admins that has the worth in there. But when we're talking about role-based access controls, there's a component, and this component is the component of provisioning as well. The great benefit is that Centrify does provide multiple ways to support the AWS application. So all we need to do is go to add a web app, and notice that if I do Amazon, I have several ways. I have the user password, I have SAML, and I'm also using the actual Amazon specific, which means with their own APIs. Ultimately, what we need to be able to provide is the ability to map a collection of users to a group that has entitlements in AWS. In my particular case, what I've done is that I've used Active Directory groups to provide this capability. I've actually created a group called AWS Read Only, right? And I've actually also made my friend Fred Thomas a member of that group. So he's a member of that group. So at this point, he doesn't have access to the application. He's actually logged in here. And I'm going to just add the group that he belongs to, AWS Read Only, to the group inside the Centrify Identity Service. So the results that I expect, and I'm going to just eliminate this too. The result that I expect is that I should be able to nest this group inside the role in CIS, and I'll be able to, after synchronization happens, the user is going to be provisioned into the group inside AWS. Notice a great benefit. We can have multiple Active Directories that may not be, joined by a trust, work together in a single instance of Centrify Identity Service. So I'm going to go ahead and add, and then save. And I'm going to trigger a provisioning action for this application. I can also track the job in here. So sometimes I get an email, right? I don't want to wait for the email. I can track this job right here. Okay. So ultimately, my expectation is, and if I look at AWS, from some of my testing from before, I do have incorrect group memberships in here. So I actually, right now, it has nobody in there. So my expectation is that, and as you can see here, that my user has been provisioned now, Fred Thomas, and this is a person that only has read-only access. I happen to have Fred Thomas already logged in here. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. Right? And one thing that I also need to make sure is that the application is visible for him. So let me just go ahead and do a reload. And notice that AWS just came up as a new application. And if my user needed access, all he needs to do is login. So I think that I put multi-factor in here. Let's take a look. Okay. So the user is going to have to provide a multi-factor. In this case, he doesn't have a mobile device enabled, so I'm going to have to receive an SMS and type in um, basically a simple code. And I've got the code. And I'll be able to log in as Fred Thomas. And I have basically a different role. So my user, let's take a look, identity. And here it is, my groups. And here it is. And again, so as a summary, right? So when we're talking about providing roles and rights, we are talking about two components. Single sign-on, of course, because we want to delight our users. And also, we're talking about being able to provide them with on-time provisioning, right? So I still have to work the kinks a little bit on this. I think I might have protected it with multi-factor when I didn't want to do that. But you guys get the idea. The key here is process, right? So ultimately, it's tied to a group in Active Directory. So the add moves or changes can be managed by your internal process, be it manual, be it to something like ServiceNow, for example, right? You know, it's very popular right now to be able to do that. And notice that even Fred Thomas is a user, or Diana is a user in ServiceNow, so she could have requested that through there.